I've got a little story for you guys. Yeah, story time, man. Story time. So, since we were taking a look today at giving forward and avarice and this whole diseases of the heart, في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا. When they have diseases in the heart, these are abstract diseases, not cardiovascular, but Allah increases them. So this a story or an incident or some history comes straight to mind, people. Kya baat hai, yaar, kya baat hai. Let me just bring this. All right, people. So, where's it gone? Oh, there it is. All right. People, let me take you back to some incidents from the time of Bani al-Abbas. All right. This is Ghalibs and Sodas, but that's not what we want to focus on. Al-Mutawakkil. Those of you that remember, shukran, much love, muchas gracias, hermano, right? So, those of you that remember, we discussed previously in one of the sessions, we'd spoken about Harun al-Rashid and the whole incident, but Harun al-Rashid, the point being, an anchor point. And you remember there was, after him, there was this thing of the Abbasids had this trend or this tradition where they would try to list a few caliphs after them in succession to kind of maintain the peace. So they couldn't choose between the kids. And they're trying to give forward. So after Harun al-Rashid, there was, you had the Amin and Ma'mun, and that's a nightmare. And we'll cover that another time. But they had another brother as well, sibling, Mu'tasim. And that's interesting because, Mu'tasim, he's obviously carries on that whole incident of the Fitnatul Quran. But he is, in his time, he does try to structure the state, this sort of the dynasty. And what he does is he sets up a new city, Samarra, which is in modern-day Iraq. And it's probably about 100 miles from north of Baghdad. And he sets this up, and in Arabic they would refer to it sometimes as Surra Man Ra'a, but it's Samarra. And he has it as a garrison kind of town, has his armies there, and he wants to gain strength because you have to keep in mind what Amin and Ma'mun, they'd kind of destroyed Baghdad and fighting and all this stuff. And there's the fear because look, his own brothers, you'd had fratricide. They'd killed each other. So even though, okay, there's no brothers left, but the threat is from those that are close to you. What's the but the point is that the threat is from those around you. You're more wary about them. So, and we'd heard about the Baramika incident, the Persians, and them getting into immense power. So Mu'tasim in his time thought, you know what, we can't rely on the Persians. He begins to bring in the Turks. And this is where history is once again set into motion. But first, what you had with the Persians now becomes a long legacy of the Turks. And the Turks come in because he thinks, well, I can trust these people. They ain't going to try and take me over. Nobody's going to, take them as rulers. And whereas I can't trust the Arabs, or I can't trust Bani al-Abbas, they're too close to me, and so on. So he has his special guards and this infantry and gains this loyalty, and he sets up this garrison town in Samarra, and then he invests in it as a city, and it becomes this thriving city. And now after him, you have the same problem. You see, the same parampara, the tradition, that it's his kids. He has to put them in command. So what he does is the same thing that had happened many generations back when it was with Harun al-Rashid, that will set this brother first, then this brother, then this brother. So you had al-Wathiq. So there were generally the three. Al-Wathiq is to be the next. And then after Al-Wathiq, the other brother, it will be Al-Mutawakkil. And then it will be Al-Musta'in. And Al-Mutawakkil is the one I want to really speak about. Share his incident. But this is the build-up here. We've got to build up to it, man. So what happens is Al-Wathiq, after Al-Mu'tasim, Al-Wathiq comes in. He continues the inquisition of the creation of the Quran, and he continues that legacy. He rules for a little while, and he's got his kind of power, but after him he has his kids, but after him it does toe the line. It's the brother Mutawakkil. Now Mutawakkil comes in and things are going good. They're in Samarra, they're in this new capital, it's thriving. They have this kind of Turkic infantry and these many people in the ranks and people of immense power, and they've got glory and capital and opulence and affluence and prosperity and this money galore, and as it ought to be. It's the dunya, why not enjoy it, huh? And one of the things when fine dining in this dunya is the gentler other, huh? Do lafzon mein poshida kul meri kahani hai, ek lafz mohabbat hai, ek lafz javani. He says, my whole story can be wrapped up and concealed in these two words. One is love, man, and the other is youthfulness. So like many a lover before him, Al-Mutawakkil, the one who relies, Allah, Al-Mutawakkil Allah. And this was an Abbasi trend, by the way, to have these names that are these honorifics. This was an Abbasi thing. It's a very stylish thing, I have to say. So that everybody had to choose a name that was something to do with God, like the one who's victorious by God or reliant upon God, or the one who, like you had Ar-Rashid, the guided with God, or Al-Hadi, and all these names. So, yeah, Al-Mutawakkil. So things are going epic. He's building, and he builds he's also, Al-Mutawakkil is the one who's built this, by the way. The spiral minaret that you can see, they call it Al-Mi'dhana Al-Malwiya. It's still there in Iraq. It's a UNESCO site, I believe. And it's about 50 meters tall, and it's built on an ancient structure. This was the minaret, if you like. This kind of style. They call it Al-Malwiya, that which kind of goes round. And this was built by Mutawakkil. And that's an alleged kind of in a coin. You can see that little picture of his. I don't know if that's really going to work if he was lost and we were trying to find him with that picture. Anyway, as the riches have flown in, and so Mutawakkil also has his far and wide stretching harem, of concubines, as one must, of course. So they say it said 4,000, this is what some narrations say, concubines. And historians go out of their way to highlight that all of whom had been graced with the royal sexual audience by the caliph himself. I mean, just yeah, pausing for a moment यार, कुछ break लेते हैं यार. Un momentico, un momentico. I mean, just looking at the mathematics of that, is that like if you're going at the rate of, I don't know, 3 on a daily basis, in a whole year, that's only just 1,000. I mean, so this is like 3-4 years of a project. Khalifa Waqt. Khalifa was quite busy, as you can see, attending to royal matters. But amidst all of this, amidst doing the delivering, serving, giving forward to the ummah. Amidst his servitude, this is not, the Khilafah is not for anyone and everyone. It has great burdens with it. So whilst doing this, there is a story of a character or a personality that stands out in Abbasid history. A woman, Allah, known as Qubayha or Qabiha, which means ugly, but she was pause, breaks. We've got to introduce this character. So Qubayha, some people say Qabiha, same thing. I mean, makes no difference. Some people read it as Qubayha. She was a Roman girl that was born. The family had converted to Islam. They were of Roman origin. She was incredibly beautiful. From birth, people could see that what a beautiful child. They could just see, wow, this girl going on will become something so, I mean, just look at her. So the parents, out of fear of, let's say, the evil eye, what some people would do is they would name someone by contrast, to kind of, so it doesn't draw attention to her. So they named her ugly. They named her Qabiha, or you could say Qubayha al-Rumiyya. So just so it doesn't draw people's attention to her. So if people say, who is she? She's the ugly duckling. But she's actually incredibly beautiful. So as she comes of age and she matures, she has this outstanding, this kind of, this captivating beauty, electrifying beauty to her. And she's cultured and developed and incredibly eloquent. She's a poetess. So she only befits royalty. So, and as you know, Al-Mutawakkil in his time, there's no shortage in the royal harem, but is there room in the inn? There's always room in the inn. Kamal karte ho yaar. There's always room in the inn. As the famous saying goes, that dil mein jagah honi chahiye. There must be a place in the heart, man. There's always, as long as there's space in the heart, there's always space. So what happens is she's presented to Al-Mutawakkil that, would you like to glorify further your royal palace with another? It's difficult. I know the numbers are already high and you have a hard task, but would you like to? So Mutawakkil was like, hi, yaar. Neki or pooch pooch. He said, like, a good deed and you're wasting time in asking? Of course, I'm ready here. I'm at your service. A las órdenes. So now Qubayha al-Rumiyya is in the royal palace and she's captivating. Not just her beauty. You see, beauty is one thing. Personality is the stake in the heart then. See, because somebody could just be incredibly beautiful, but if their personality is a bit bland, they don't really have a personality, then, see, beauty can capture in the moment, but it doesn't keep. But what absolutely encapsulates the heart or the personality. So she had a striking personality, poetry, art, literature, eloquence, a refined character. So she very swiftly started to rise in the ranks, especially amongst the concubines. She rose, and she became like a favorite. And from there, almost like a confidant, rather. Qubayha's doing it, man. She's doing it. So she's got the caliph's ear. She's got his attention. And so they say, let me give you an example. And this isn't just as this is happening, she's also catching the attention of people as well, because she has this charm, this enchanting personality, and some of the the people can notice this, the kind of ministers, the wuzara, and these people. On this one occasion, Al-Mutawakkil was ill, and he was quite seriously ill, and they said to him that, look, there's a way to get you better, and they had this kind of bloodletting technique called fast, and they say, look, let's try that, but that's dangerous, because you have to, I think they would strike at, I'm pretty sure it was like near enough to an artery almost, and there's a chance you could kind of just all go, or you somehow, it rejuvenates you somehow. But this was a known technique, and they did it, and he makes it, and he survives, and he starts to get better. And for a moment, people were worried Mutawakkil's kind of on his way out, but he wasn't. And Qubayha, when she finds out, what she does, she says, you know what, right now he's got some strength. He's got strength back to him. So what she does is she gets some new concubines for him. And she has this concubine all done up. And she brings this concubine as a gift to him. Yeah, mind games, guy. Mind games. This one playing the mind games, man. So she brings the concubines to him. This concubine, new gift, yeah, new gift, new concubine. And she says a poem, and she's a poetess herself. So she has a poem as well. She says to him, Ishrab. She says, Ishrab bihadha al-jam ya sayyidi, mustamti'an min hadhihi al-jariya. She says, drink from this kind of goblet, this vessel. Drink from, obviously a drink. And ya sayyidi, my master, was mustamti'an min hadhihi al-jariya. That whilst indulging, relaxing with this jariya, this young lady's young woman, the one she's gifting. Waj'al, she says, Waj'al liman ahdakaha hissatan tahdha biha fi al-laylati al-taliya. Says, and the one who's gifted her to you, gift her in turn the following night. Seduction. This is master level seduction. So obviously Mutawakkil his heart has melted. He's like, yaar, khuliq al-insanu da'ifa. Insan is da'if anyway, with this kind of sacrifice, this kind of giving forward. Who wouldn't kind of melt? And so he's totally melted. Pani, that's the thing. So yeah, So he now is totally in the low, man. He's in the low with Qubayha al-Rumiyya. And she becomes his number one. And in this kind of this new level of passion and love, she becomes pregnant, has a child. So this child is named Mu'taz. Now, Mutawakkil already has a child, and who's already of some age, known as Al-Muntasir. And what had happened is Mutawakkil had previously already designated his son Al-Muntasir as the next caliph. Because you never know, anything could happen anytime. He lives a dangerous life. He actually did used to go out to some battles as well and some things. It's a dangerous game, dangerous, royal palaces, caliph, 4,000 concubines, a whole 3 continents span, the dynasty spans over. So he had designated the Waliul Ahd after him was Al-Muntasir. Now, what happens is, as Al-Mu'taz starts to grow, Qubayha al-Rumiyya, she starts to gain much more control in the royal court. She starts to have the ears of some of the Turkic ministers, the wuzara, and these wuzara were incredibly powerful by this stage. They were not just nobodies. They were people that were see, the people who run your armies are always people of power. This is how you'll get things. How do military coups happen? That person, the commander-in-chief in most of these countries is not a publicly elected. It's just he has control. He has immense power. And it's a question of loyalties. And you have to remember that when you encircle yourself with these people. So she too has the ear of many of these Turks and many of these ministers. And she starts telling Mutawakkil that, Muntasir's good. I mean, he's good too. I get it. He's good. But, yar, if, shouldn't it be Mu'taz? Right. Shouldn't it be Mu'taz? Right. So this is so she's kind of putting this into his ear, and he's this is settling in. And he too is very fond of Mu'taz because he's really obsessed with Qubayha, and this is for years. He loves her to bits. So what happens is, as time moves forward, or as time progresses, or as people progress with time, you find that Mutawakkil starts to diss his son Muntasir. Right. He starts to diss his son in front of people. He'll start belittling him, and in front of the ministers in the royal court, he'll start saying things and treating him, saying sometimes things like, treating him like, stupid. What's wrong with you, stupid? Are you dumb or something? And remember, this is the heir to the throne. And he's noticing that, something's not right. Okay. And things start to intensify. Now, you see, the Turks, they too can see what's going on. Okay. So the ministers, they can see this, and they can see that Qubayha is kind of swinging things in her direction. So what happens? Mutawakkil makes a royal decree, makes an announcement. He says, I cancel my heir to the throne, Al-Muntasir, my eldest son, and I rename him. I rename the heir as Al-Mu'taz. And he has other sons as well, by the way. People like Al-Mu'ayyad, he has Al-Muwaffaq, other sons, but he names Al-Mu'taz. Now, this has caused quite some drama in the royal palace. People are like, what on earth's going on? But Mutawakkil is still alive, but this is now bothering people. Some of the Turks, the ministers, they too, now there's these two famous characters that come up, known as Wasif and Bugha. They're very powerful. They like these, you could say almost like the Home Secretary almost. And like the Secretary for Foreign Affairs, like that, the Foreign Secretary. This is how powerful they are. These two were incredibly powerful. And especially because of how they control the armies. So people are not sure because they're thinking Mutawakkil seems to be really getting swayed by this Qubayha. And we don't like where this is going. Now, Muntasir, you have to remember, is much more mature. And he's a strong man. He's like one of these strong-minded kind of soldiers. So he discusses with some of these ministers, some of these Turks that they have. And he says that, you know what? It's Ar Yapar. It's time to make a decision. That do we take a stand? Do we take a stand? Take a stance? And he wins the support of some of them. And what he does is he, in line with the unfortunate tradition that had gone before him, overnight, he has access. He gets his little crew. They sneak into his dad's bedroom, Mutawakkil, and just, without any news, without any drama being kicked off, they assassinate Mutawakkil. And he seizes the throne. Now, Muntasir becomes the new caliph. And when he seizes it, people pledge allegiance to him. He's already got, because it happened so suddenly, and he has certain people make announcement, other people pledge their allegiance. It's stabilized. Right. There is obviously this sends tremors into the world, but it is what it is. We've got Muntasir, and Muntasir is like a very strong character. He's not the kind of person that, he has a presence to him. So people go with it. Obviously, Qubayha is very upset that it ought to be her son. And he knows this as well. So what happens is, in the weeks that follow, Muntasir thinks that, look, I'm not going to fall into the same mistake that my ancestors did with letting these ministers have so much power. I'm going to make it clear that the power is mine. So he makes it very clear, and he's a strong character. He's not a pushover. And he makes it very clear to the ministers. He starts kind of trying to curb in some of the control, and he himself starts to participate in things. Like, he will attend the battles, and he's a very strong soldier and a strong fighter, and he himself is at the front. And he's leading, he's going to projects, he's attending this city, he's going to that town. He's kind of taking control of things himself. And he starts to get involved with the common people, starts to regain their hearts, make it be known. You know how you'll get a presidential campaign and people will go to this city and go to that city? He starts doing that and winning the hearts and minds of people. He's not a silent caliph. He's present. And so people realize, wow, okay, so they start to take a liking to him. Now, this leaves the Turks a bit divided, because they can see what he's trying to do. I'm not trying, what he's doing. Whilst this is happening, Qubayha, she starts liaising with some of these, saying that, look, let's let's lay him to rest. Let's do something about him. Now the Turks they agree that they don't like Al-Muntasir. They don't like what he's doing, because if he carries on, they will soon be relatively powerless, or at least that's the direction this is going in. But then they are divided amongst themselves. They don't really like this Qubayha either, because they know what she's about. And one thing Qubayha was very known about was she really took to royalties and just luxuries, and maybe because she came from a background of poverty, but it was something that was very apparent about her, that she loved, just really enjoyed indulging in luxuries and wealth, and it was all, that does give off that attitude of me. And people, they thought, the Turks were like, well, we can't really trust her, but we don't like what's happening with Muntasir. So they do listen to her. She's saying that, look, let's do away with him. And the legend has it that, check this out. It's interesting. Mindset is everything. And there's a hadith that Allah says that, Ana inda abdi ka dhannihi bi. How a slave thinks of me, that's how I will treat them. Right. If there's any trolling, right, guys, I'm gonna put some of you in timeout. Okay, if there's any trolling, right, and if any kind of pay attention, you can chat elsewhere, not over here, not in the distracting manner. And what I will do is right, so distracted me there. Right, so where was I? You see, this is why I find this so annoying. Make me lose my train of thought. Right, so and this is why, if you do it again, anybody, instant block. Okay, so okay, so now, right, so coming back to this thing, Qubayha, you've got the Turks, you've got the Wuzara, you've got Al-Mutawakkil, you've got all these. Mutawakkil's gone, you've got Muntasir, people are upset with him, but he's this very strong character. And the Turks feel that, okay, one thing we need is to get rid of him. But whilst this is happening, this is the thing. It comes back to the spirit of an individual. You see, as long as there is a fight in you, you can always make it. It is when you give in mentally. Now, the legend has it that Muntasir one day was he was in his palace, and they had these storage rooms, huge, with antiquities in there, and many kind of just items and stuff and valuables were stored. So he asks for a rug to be brought out. Now, when the rug is brought out, it's an ancient antique rug from the Sassanid dynasty time. So it's ancient. We're looking at it. It's a few hundred years old. That's what it is. This ancient rug, very well kept. So he has it unfolded, and he's there sitting on it, and it has this writing in the center, a pattern. He has this, catches his eye, and it has some writing in Persian, and he's intrigued. What is this writing? So he has somebody come to read it, and what they do is they take a look at it, and they can't, they seem to brush it off. They say, yeah, Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's nothing. It doesn't say anything. And he's like, what does it say? He's like, I never asked your opinion. I asked you to translate what it says. So what it says, so one of them comes and they translate it for him, and it's an ancient Sassanid prince by the name Shahrazor. And he says that, and he's written on there that I, Shahrazor, the son of Kisra, the son of such and such, killed my father for the throne. And I only indulged and enjoyed that throne for 6 months to come before I met my demise. These words send shivers down Muntasir's spine. And it really hits him deep down in his psyche that, damn. And he starts to feel that I've only got 6 months to live. And what happens is, it is actually said within those months, like from when he took the throne, within 6 months, he actually, within 6 months, he was poisoned and died. And it's amazing that you see a person's fight, his inner fight, he gives up. And this could be in any area of life. And in fact, it's very interesting if you read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, of those in the concentration camps. And it's when they gave up the inner fight, they died. And those who didn't survived. And it's interesting. So Muntasir is poisoned. But when he's poisoned to death and killed, the Turks, especially these two commanders, these commanders in chief, these Bugha and Wasif, what they do is they do not want Qubayha to have any control. So they go back. And if you recall, when I introduced the siblings of Mutawakkil, I'd said Wathiq before him, there was Mutawakkil, and then there was Musta'een, and he was meant to be the caliph after Mutawakkil, but Mutawakkil changed it. He put his son Muntasir or Mu'taz next, as they often do. The Turks went and got Musta'een. They said, you know what, let's go with him. And they bring this guy and put him back in control. I mean, he was never in control, but they put him in control, and he's an absolute puppet. He has absolute no say in the matter, and he tries to on one or two occasions try nothing. Everybody knows it. He's just a puppet, and you have Wasif and Bugha that just run the show. Obviously, Qubayha is well mad about this. She's like, this is just bang out of order. Now, she does, you see, the Turks were divided. She does have some on her side. Now, it's interesting. This is how much of a puppet this Musta'een was, that he, even though he was a good man, but he didn't have no power. That some of the ancient poets had written about him. Right. Right. So one of the poets had written about him that they had said Khalifatun fi qafsin, that a Khalifa in a cage, bayna wasifin wa bugha, between wasif and bugha, يقول ما قال كما يقول الببغاء. They say that this is how the Khalifa is in a cage between these two. He just says what these two say as though he's a parrot. Babagha is a parrot in Arabic. Now, so this is the kind of stuff that's going on. Now, you see, this is why people, if you know none of this kind of trolling or chatting about whatever, I just block someone, I'll block a few other people as well. So Qubayha, what she does is she gets together certain people that she can win their trust, and says to them, look, what we got to do, we got to really dispose of these people, fight with us and do this. And she gets her son, Mu'taz, says to him, what on earth are you doing? Rally a crowd. We can't have this guy. He's just useless. So they do. So they rally a crowd, they get some people. Mu'taz rises to the occasion, says, yeah, I'm going to get this for myself. He has his other brothers. He kind of wins their support over. Muwaffaq, who was actually a brave warrior, a brave fighter, brave soldier, put it like that. Because in another session, what we'll do is we'll speak about there was something known as the times of distress, the crises or the disarray of Samarra, which is the city they live in. And it involves all this that's going on because people are getting really upset. See, whilst this is happening, Musta'in's been placed in control, Muntasir has been killed, the public are getting upset. And there's certain weeks that follow in which there's kind of rioting and stuff, and there's this kind of loss of control. This sets into motion something that would be known as the rebellion of the Zanj. The Zanj were, it's a word for like slaves. It's almost like an ancient word that isn't used so much, almost like saying Negroes. But there was a rebellion of the Zanj, which is actually not a rebellion of the Zanj. It was by an Alawi, a Shi'i leader, Ali ibn Muhammad, but he gets together with him. This huge rebellion lasts for decades, or over almost 2 decades, something we'll talk about another time. But Muwaffaq is the key. He's the brother of Mu'taz and Muntasir, and he's this soldier. And Mu'taz uses him, says, look, come on, man, you got to help me. Let's go. That's our uncle. I mean, why is he in control? We should be in control. So they go and they fight and they win. They don't kill Musta'in, but he realizes, look, I'm too old for this. So he kind of just says, look, I'm packing it in and I don't want to be a puppet anyway. And so he leaves town and goes and then he's just assassinated. Mu'taz becomes the new caliph. And this was the dream going back to Qubayha. See, she always had this dream that my son, he has to be the ruler, right? He has to be that. So, and finally that's come to its fruition. So now things are settling in. Finally, Mu'taz is there. He's kind of trying to do his thing. His mom is saying, yeah, she's de facto finally in control as well. And this means full control. So money is coming in. She now controls the money. And something they say she had many great attributes to her. Qubayha Rumiya, so talented, like a polyglot. And she was such a genius in things like language and poetry and obviously enchanting beauty. But they say one of the weaknesses she had was that of this greed for wealth. And this is what she's got access to. All of these funds now have to be channeled through her. So she's entirely in charge. Now, She's obviously dipping into the well. She's loving it. Mu'taz is Mu'taz is loving it. He's in charge. People are a bit confused about the direction where this would go. Okay, because do that, because you have to remember, people like the Turks were de facto, I mean, they not de facto, they had incredible power that they would kind of wield. Whilst this was going on and Mu'taz was going to regain the throne, the two great commanders that I'd spoken of, the Turk commanders, were assassinated. And they believe generally that Qubayha had something to do with that. She had kind of, because the Turkic factions had kind of split. She had somewhere on this side, somewhere on that. They're not one unified body. But those two were assassinated, and their children, obviously they had grown children who kind of took their positions. But there's a lot of drama going on. There's a lot of spice in there, a lot of kind of masala, a lot of kind of turbulence. And you see, what happens is some of these Turkic people feel that, you know what, we should get rid of Mu'taz. We don't trust him. Let's get rid of him and get someone else. But this is expected. You know, if you're Mu'taz, you think there's going to be an assassination on me. As the poet says that, you know, Sazishon mein gira ek yatim shehzada, koi chupa hua khanjar meri talash mein. That there's a dagger that is searching for me. I have to be aware of it. So he has secret guards that are always kind of like these bodyguards that are, they take discrete locations, but they're always watching out. And that's their job, to foil any assassination attempts. So what happens is, one of these top, remember the two, Bugha and Wasif, one of their kids, who's not a kid, he's a grown man, that Turkic faction does attempt an assassination on Mu'taz, and it's foiled by his special unit. So they catch him and they kill, and they don't just kill this guy, they make an example of him. They burn the body, set it alight, to say, well, anybody who attempts an assassination on me, this is what we're going to do. But you see, you have to remember, the person they're killing was a significant Turk. And even if the other Turkic factions didn't necessarily like him, there's still a sense of affinity. And that too, they burn his body like as in front of people. So this really, you know, it leaves a bad taste in the mouths of his infantry and his special unit, who are these Turks. Now, as time, weeks pass and the months, Qubayha is running the show, but she feels that some of the infantry and these soldiers, she feels that, you know, they're not 100% loyal. So what she starts to do, as any good capitalist, since she's in charge of the treasury, she starts to tighten the noose on their salaries. She thinks this will bring them in check. That obviously, if they're starving for money, they have to listen to me. So this upsets the people, that why our salaries not coming. And what happens is that so, you know, it starts to annoy people. And she thinks, no, like, let them grovel, let them beg. They have to know who's boss. This move of hers actually tips the scale, and they lose the plot. They get that vexed that they hijack. They hijack the Caliph Mu'taz. He's with them. They hijack him. They kidnap him. And what they ask for is their money. They want 50,000 dinars. 50,000. That's what they're demanding. That's what it. So now, whilst he's obviously saying, he says, look, okay, I'll pay you. Now he sends someone to go to the treasury and you have them release the funds. They go there and they say, well, there's no funds here. So he's kidnapped. And they get fed up with it, start to torture him. Now, this is something that's documented in the history book. What they do is they torture him by they take him to a desert location, have him stand in the burning heat. And that's what he has to do. He just has to stand there. And he can't sit, and he must stand. And they say that to the extent that he would keep raising one leg because the sand would be so hot, and then the other, this is how he's being tortured. He's the caliph. So he says, look, let me please send a message to my mom, Qubayha, that please pay these people 50,000 dinars. So they send a message, and she says, look, here's my treasury, it's empty. I don't have the money. Now, she has an incredible amount of wealth, but she would store it in what was secret chambers. So this goes on for only just a few days until their torturing is getting out of hand, that they decide to have him without any food or water in the sun, and he's completely dehydrated. They realize she's not going to pay the money. So what they do is, whilst he's dehydrated, this is what the historians write, they take him into a heated hammam and they lock him here till he dies of thirst. When he dies, they raid the palace, because this is the royal guards. They raid the palace, arrest, not that they want Qubayha, but arrest her. Whilst they're trying to arrest her, she runs into these secret chambers to hide. So they didn't realize this, but they didn't know that there were these secret chambers. But as they're chasing her to arrest her, they discover these secret chambers that are full of stored gold, that people say it came out to something like 2 to 3 million golden pieces, which obviously they take, and all they wanted was just 50,000. That was all. And this became known as one of the shocking cases of Islamic history, where a mother had let her son die from thirst, a caliph die of the only caliph in all of Islamic history that died of thirst, because his mother refused to foot the bill of 50,000 dinars while she sat on millions. And it's such an eye-opener, and it comes back to that في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا, that this avarice, this disease of the heart, and then Allah allows it to grow. And she was obviously removed from the royal palace and went off just as a nobody and lived the rest of her life. They didn't actually kill her, but they just took. See, they were just interested in getting paid. And they got a lot more than they bargained for. And then there's just much more chaos in the caliphs that follows, but that's a story for another day. But I thought this Mutawakkil and his love story with Qubayha, how this woman rises from rags to incredible riches and has this dream of her child ruling the entire world, but then falls short on just footing this bill of 50,000 dinars and has him die in thirst, is just something that is so mind-blowing. And history is like that. It's full of so many examples for us.